Welcome to this presentation by Facilitators Research. This research is distributed exclusively for informational and educational purposes and does not constitute financial, legal, tax, or investment advice. For such services, you may reach out to speak to one of our officers.
Section 1. General. Section 1.1. Citation. These rules shall be cited as MSM Equity Listings Rules. Section 1.2. Purpose 1 of 2. These rules are drafted pursuant to Regulation 22(d) of the Capital Markets Regulations, 2014 and in line with the International Organization of Securities Commissions, IOSCO, principles to ensure a high level of investor protection and confidence. The purpose of these equity listing rules is to provide a transparent and an unambiguous process with regard to the listing of equity securities for new applications and the ongoing obligations for issuers. These rules provide for the minimum disclosure, which investors and their professional advisors would reasonably require for making an informed assessment of the nature and state of an issuer's business. They outline equity issues and set out the qualifications for listing, application procedures, the minimum contents of listing prospectus, and the continuous obligations that have to be fulfilled at all times after listing. Section 1.2. Purpose 2 of 2. They are applicable to all equity securities issued by domestic and foreign issuers and are eligible for listing on MSM in accordance with the provisions of these rules. Section 1.3. Interpretation. In these rules, unless otherwise stated or the context requires otherwise, any expression which denotes any gender includes the other gender, and the singular includes the plural and vice versa. In these rules, unless otherwise stated or the context requires otherwise, the following terms will have the meaning set out below. Defined terms, 1 of 17. Acquisition issue. An issue of securities in consideration for an acquisition of assets, which shall not include the extinction of liability, obligation or commitment, or an issue of securities for an acquisition of, or merger with, another company in consideration for the securities of that other company, acting in concert, cooperating for a common purpose by two or more persons pursuant to an agreement, arrangement or understanding, whether formal or informal, between them, and associates shall be deemed to be so cooperating, admission or admission to listing. Admission of securities to listing on the MSM. Defined terms, 2 of 17. Application. An application for the listing of equity securities, which application shall contain the documents provided for in these rules. Applicant or applicant issuer. An issuer applying for admission of any class of its securities. Authorized amount. The amount on outstanding equity securities which the Board of Directors or similar body in respect of a non-corporate issuer has approved. Books closed period. The period or periods stipulated by an issuer as being the period or periods during which the register in respect of its equity securities is closed for purposes of giving effect to transfers, redemption or the distribution of the equity securities. Defined terms, 3 of 17. Working day. A day on which commercial banks settle payments, capitalization issue, or bonus or scrip issue. An issue of free additional shares to existing shareholders of the company in proportion to their shareholdings. CBL. The Central Bank of Lesotho Central Securities Depository. The CBL computer-based securities registration and settlement system for government, CBL and other eligible issuers. It is a data recording system that records the holdings of all securities, government securities, equities and corporate bonds, etc., in electronic form and performs electronic settlement of funds and securities. Defined terms, 4 of 17. Circular. Any document or advertisement issued to holders of listed securities by an issuer of securities, but excluding listing particulars, annual reports and accounts, interim reports, proxy forms and dividend vouchers. Convertible security. An instrument or security issued by a company which is convertible into or can be exchanged for another security of that company, accompanied by options to subscribe for or purchase other securities. Defined terms, 5 of 17. Controlling shareholder. An entity or individual whose shareholding or voting rights constitute 50% or more of the voting rights at meetings of the relevant company, or can appoint or remove, or cause to be appointed or removed, directors exercising more than 50% of the voting rights at directors' meetings of the relevant company director. A director as defined in Section 2(1) of the Companies Act, 2011, and in relation to an issuer that is not a company, a person with corresponding powers and duties, equity, ordinary shares. Shares comprising company's equity share capital and carry voting rights. Defined terms, 6 of 17. Equity securities. Equity shares, securities convertible into equity shares and equity instruments. Extraordinary resolution. A resolution passed at a meeting convened by a majority consisting of not less than 75% of holders of the value of a class of equity securities. False market. A market in financial securities caused by persons or companies conspiring to buy or sell, and so influence the price to their advantage. Formal approval. The final approval granted by the MSM Group, a holding company together with all the companies being its subsidiaries. Holding company. A company that has one or more subsidiaries. Defined terms, 7 of 17. Holder of equity securities. The holders of equity securities as recorded in the Register of Equity Securities, maintained by the CBL-CSD, IFRS. The International Financial Reporting Standards. Interim report. An issuer financial report covering a period of less than 1 year. Interim statements are used to convey the performance of a company before the end of normal full-year financial reporting cycles. Introduction. A method of bringing securities to listing not involving an issue of new securities or any marketing of existing securities because the spread of shareholders already complies with the conditions for listing. Defined terms, 8 of 17. Investment entities. Investment companies, investment trusts and unit trusts whose principal activity is investment in securities. Investors. Persons, natural or juristic, who acquire equity securities listed on MSM, and potential investors, shall be interpreted accordingly. Issue date. The date upon which the equity securities listed on the MSM are issued by the applicant issuer. As specified in the prospectus, issuer. A person by whom securities have been issued or are to be issued, and shall include a company or other legal entity that offers securities to the public or a section thereof in Lesotho. Defined terms, 9 of 17. Last day to register. Close of business on the working day immediately preceding the first day of a book's closed period. Listed company. A company whose class of securities is listed on MSM. Listing. The admission of equity security to the official list. Listing committee. A committee constituted in accordance with the mandate issued by the Board/Executive Committee of the MSM for this purpose. Listing date. The date upon which an equity security is listed on the MSM. Listing particulars. A statement by a company seeking a listing and issued for the purpose of giving information to the public with regard to the company and containing particulars specified in these rules, by the law or both. Defined terms, 10 of 17. LSW/RTGS. Lesotho Wire System or Real-Time Gross System. The Lesotho's large value payment system that provides real-time and intraday settlement of financial transactions on a continuous and gross basis. Market price. In relation to a listed security, the ruling price for that security. Material information. Information which, if omitted or misstated, could influence the economic decisions of users and includes, but not limited to, a change in or constituent of a particular factor which may be regarded in the circumstances as being material and which would probably exceed 10% in value. MSM. Shall mean Maseru Securities Market, Proprietary Ltd. Defined terms, 11 of 17. Offering circular. A document containing inter alia the provisions required by these rules. For a single issue of equity securities. Official list. A list maintained of companies whose securities are listed on MSM. Offer for sale. An invitation to the public by or on behalf of a third party to purchase securities of the issuer already in issue or to be issued, and may be in the form of an invitation to tender at or above a stated price. Offer for subscription. An invitation to the public by or on behalf of an issuer to subscribe for securities of the issuer not yet in issue or allotted, and may be in the form of an invitation to tender at or above a stated price. Defined terms, 12 of 17. Option. Contract which gives the buyer, the owner or holder of the option, the right, but not the obligation, to buy or sell an underlying asset or instrument at a specified price on or before a specified date. Paying agent. An entity identified as such in the placing document or the pricing supplement, which undertakes certain functions with regard to payments in relation to equity securities, which entity may also be the applicant issuer. Defined terms, 13 of 17. Placing. A marketing of securities already in issue but not listed or not yet in issue, to specific persons or to clients of the sponsoring broker or any securities house assisting in the placing, which does not involve an offer to the public or to existing holders of the applicant's securities generally, and which takes place immediately before the applicant is listed. Practice note. A paper published by the MSM indicating changes, guidelines or additions to these rules. Registrar of Capital Markets. The Registrar of the Capital Markets as defined in Regulation 5 of the Capital Markets Regulations of 2014. Defined terms, 14 of 17. Renounceable offer. An invitation by a listed company to its shareholders to subscribe by way of rights for securities in the applicant where the listed company has received the right to subscribe for those securities in the applicant, but renounces all or part of that right to its shareholders' rights offer. An offer to existing holders of securities to subscribe for or purchase further securities in proportion to their holdings made by means of the issue of a renounceable letter or other negotiable documents which may be traded, as either fully paid or nil paid rights, for a period before payment for the securities is due. Defined terms, 15 of 17. Ruling price. The price at which the last sale of a security took place, or if higher the closing bid price or if lower the closing offer price is published in the daily official list on the relevant day. Rules. The rules of the MSM as approved by the Registrar of Capital Markets. Subscribed share capital. The portion of the company issued capital which has been subscribed for by shareholders sponsoring broker. A member of the MSM appointed by a listed company in accordance with Section 4. Subsidiary. A subsidiary company as defined in the Companies Act of 2011. Defined terms, 16 of 17. Substantial shareholder. A person who holds a share or an interest in a share which entitles him to exercise more than 5% of the aggregate voting power exercisable at the meeting of shareholders transfer secretary or transfer agent. An entity licensed by Registrar of Capital Markets, which maintains a register of equity securities, which entity may be the issuer of such equity securities. Trust. A fiduciary relationship in which one party, known as a trustor, gives another party, the trustee, the right to hold title to property or assets for the benefit of a third party, the beneficiary. Defined terms, 17 of 17. Warrant. Security that entitles the holder to buy the underlying stock of the issuing company at a fixed price called exercise price until the expiry date. All other words have the same meaning ascribed to them in the regulations.